What if the Enchanted Blades from Kagurabachi were cursed tools in Jujutsu Kaisen? Let's talk about it. All right, first of all, shout out to Crazy Beatrice for asking me about this today. And for anyone unfamiliar with Kagurabachi, I'll give you a little bit of a rundown here. And there's not really going to be any spoilers beyond just what these swords are capable of. Because within Kagurabachi, they are like the best of the best. They're like weapons of mass destruction. But in Kagurabachi, sorcery also exists, a lot like the sorcery in Jujutsu Kaisen. Like, people have innate abilities that are a lot like curse techniques. And the trade-off is, if you want to wield one of these crazy powerful swords, you have to give up your innate sorcery. So one thing Beatrice asked is, would anyone in JJK even want to wield these blades? Like, would they be willing to give up their curse techniques in order to do so? And I think the answer to that is yes, sort of, because I think we don't need to necessarily find characters that have curse techniques, because there's a lot that don't, that would just gain benefit from getting to wield one of these. So I'm going to give you my 5 characters who I would equip with each of these blades. And as you can see, there are 7 blades, but 2 of them are still mysterious, so I'm just going to ignore those for the purposes of this video. Alright, so let's kick things off with our MC. And spoilers for JJK, by the way, since I didn't explicitly mention that, but we know that for 99% of the series, he didn't have a curse technique. So if we equip him with one of these blades, there's virtually no downside, right? All we're giving him is access to new abilities all of a sudden. And this is probably a very easy comparison to make, but I'm going to give him the Enten Enchanted Blade, which is the one that's wielded by the main character of Kagurabachi. So MC to MC. It just makes sense, right? And if Yuji has this, he's going to be able to do a whole bunch of brand new things in addition to already being the physical demon that he is. So if we equip him with this thing, Yuji gets access to 3 new abilities. The first one is Nishiki, which is basically just physical enhancement. Like, he can use this to be faster and stronger. And there's some discussion here to whether or not, like, we're going to say that Yuji loses his cursed energy in exchange for using this blade, but I think we would honestly just, like, equate cursed energy with the power sorcery from Kagurabachi. So it would basically be another way to amp yourself beyond just cursed energy reinforcement, in my opinion. Maybe you guys would interpret it a little bit differently, but he has Nishiki, right? He can basically amp himself stat-wise. Next, he has an ability called Kuro, which is basically just a way to send out ranged slashes with his blade. So he doesn't have to be up close and physical. He will have a ranged slash, kind of like Sukuna in Shrine, right? And then the final ability, which would be the most interesting, is called Akka. And what that does is it essentially allows you to copy things, kind of like Yuta Okotsu. But how it works is the sword must absorb the sorcery first, and then Yuji will be able to use it. So, like, if someone used a curse technique on him, he could absorb it with the blade and then use it back on them. But he wouldn't have access to it permanently. As we understand it right now, it can basically, like, store something once and then use that thing, and then it would have to store something else to be able to use another ability. And so Yuji, again, just on top of being the demon he already was in the series without a curse technique, now having access to further physical amplification, ranged slashes, and a conditional copy ability would be disgusting. Next, let's go with probably the most obvious answer here, and that's Maki, because regardless of how we want to equate the relationship between cursed energy and Kagurabachi sorcery, it doesn't really matter with her, right? Because she doesn't even have cursed energy. So there is literally no conceivable downside to equipping her with one of these things. And the blade I would give her would be Tobimune, which is the one that Samura wields in Kagurabachi, because just imagining her with this goes crazy for a number of reasons. So basically, the Tobimune's abilities are Crow, wherein you can summon all of these crow feathers across the battlefield. And not only can you kind of sense through those feathers, but you can teleport between them. So just imagine already the insane heavenly restricted senses that Maki has, combined with the actual nodes of perception that those feathers would provide. Not to mention the fact, the mobility. Like, already one of the fastest characters in the verse, now being able to teleport around. Its next ability is called Owl, which essentially lets you put these massive like owl eyes in an area and be able to perceive everything within that area. It again is just enhancing even further her insane senses already, right? And then the final and third ability I think is pretty poetic for Maki in particular, because it's called Suzaku, which is kind of like the fire of a phoenix in a way, and it allows you to heal, like not only just heal like physical like wounds, but also like items and objects. And in particular, I think it's poetic because we know that Maki has all of these scars from being burned, and now she would hold the power over fire to actually heal. So Maki with an enchanted blade like probably solos most of JJK. Next up, let's show some love to Miwa, okay? One of the underappreciated swordsmen in JJK. Like, she's made it this far without a curse technique, basically just with her new shadow style and swordsman skills. So if we equip her with an enchanted blade, we are basically just giving her things with no downside, right? And I think we should equip her with the Kumeyuri from Kagurabachi. Now, at this point, we only know 2 of its 3 abilities, and there isn't really anything in particular that I think like goes with her, but again, she's just a swordsman without a curse technique, so it's kind of a perfect marriage, right? But the 2 abilities that we do know are called Banquet and Play. And the way Banquet works is you can essentially give people hallucinations, like you can make them see things or make them believe certain things. You're basically manipulating their senses. And then the other ability is Play, which basically just allows you to manipulate objects, kind of like a telekinetic force. Next up, I'm going to hit y'all with my first curveball here, but y'all are going to see where this is going because I'm going to give Kashimo one of these things. Yes, he'll have to give up his curse technique, but his curse technique is a one-time use anyway, right? He only wanted to use it against Sukuna, so like he might be willing to make this exchange in order to not sacrifice his life, right? Now, he maybe wanted to use his curse technique and like wanted to experience that, but still, I think this is a pretty good trade-off for him, and we have the perfect blade to equip him with, and that is the Cloud Gouger, because this thing has lightning and electricity abilities, so it's just going to go hand in hand with him, right? So the 3 abilities of the Cloud Gouger are first Mei, which like I mentioned is basically a lightning attack. It's just going to fit like a glove, right? Then the other ability is called Ko, which basically creates a cloud and water. Basically all of this blade deals with like weather effects. And then finally, we have Yui, which is ice. So basically, Kashimo is trading Mythical Beast Amber, which is incredibly powerful, but for an unlimited use of lightning, ice, and water. I think this works for him. And then finally, I'm sure you guys saw this coming, but we of course have to equip Kusakabe with one of these things, okay? He is the strongest grade 1 sorcerer and one of the best swordsmen without a curse technique, okay? So if we equip him with something that is going to give him actual abilities, this man is going to be a problem. And not only that, I'm giving him the best enchanted blade because one of those 7 that we spoke about earlier is far and away the best. It's actually referred to as the Senuchi, which means like the masterpiece. But its actual name is the Magatsumi, and hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. But this thing is ridiculous. Now, this is another one that we don't fully understand yet in the series, but we've seen it do some insane things. And its abilities seemingly revolve around insects and kind of like the explosion of plant life. One of the things it has done is been responsible for a genocide of over 200,000 people, which is what you're seeing behind me right here. But also it manifests abilities like these dragonfly wings or this centipede, which results in like a crazy AoE attack. Like, this thing is called the masterpiece for a reason. I'm just saying, if Kusakabe had that thing when it came time for his one-on-one with Sukuna, the Shinjuku Showdown probably ends right there. As I was making this video, I was reminded of this fan art, and this just goes so hard, okay? Yuji making a sword out of his own blood with blood manipulation is metal, okay? But like, just imagining Yuji as a swordsman in general is metal. So I think that's kind of how we could throw the Enchanted Blades in JJK and dramatically shift the power balance with really no downside, because again, we're giving them to a majority of characters without curse techniques, and then Kashimo's, you know, the exception since his curse techniques kind of weird anyway, right? So yeah, I definitely think those things would find users in the JJK verse, and it would be really cool to see. But I would love to hear y'all's interpretation of this. Who would you equip each of the blades with? And do you think it would be worth it? So let me know. And as always, thank you for watching.